YouTube, this is Redneck Mormon, and as you can see from the picture that is displayed, I'm going to talk today about an ice storm we had in January of 2009, which actually ended up being a grid down experience for us and some of the lessons that we learned during this activity. Um, it was January of 2009. We had 2.5 days of ice, sleet, and rain, and we were right on the band of the really bad weather. At the end of the third day, the sun came out, and this is what we had. This is a picture of our house. I lost a total of 12 trees that snapped completely, like the picture on the right hand side, and a couple of them that bent all the way down but didn't break, and they have actually returned. So we had a propane gas generator backup, 7,500 kilowatts. It ran the well pump and some of the outlets and it ran the refrigerator and a couple other outlets. So we were able to at least watch some videos during this time. We were out for 13 days without power because of where we were at. Of course, almost every power pole in the county was broken. They fixed the power poles closer into town first and then made their way out to us, and finally, almost 2 weeks later, they came down our road and fixed them. Even though our electric lines to the house were underground, the feeder lines to those lines were busted. So one thing we learned was that we struggled to stay warm the first 3 or 4 days after the storm stopped. It was bitterly cold, and even though we had a backup generator and we ran little space heaters, the house got down to about 50 degrees, and it was hard to sleep even under warm blankets at night. And then it warmed up near the end of the grid down. But we learned that we needed a secondary heat source, so I put in a wood-burning stove in the basement a couple of years ago, and it worked fine. So that's one of the things we learned. Another thing we learned was that our neighbors, they did not have backups for their wells, so we were the source of water for them, which was fine. We were glad to share water with our neighbors. Another thing we learned was psychologically going 13 days in a cold environment without having a warm shower or at least something like that. It was pretty taxing on my wife. I could tell when the power came back on and she was able to take a nice warm shower, her attitude and her outlook improved tremendously. Great effect on her mood. So psychologically, a warm shower became important. So we had the electrician guy came in and worked on the box for the backup generator, and he put us in a switch to where at night we could run the generator, switch it over, and it could heat up the water tank. And in the morning we could take at least 2 warm showers, real quick warm showers. So amazingly, those things are important. So we had that done. Another thing we've learned since then is, when you don't have any electricity, if you don't have a backup for your well pump, you're going to be carrying buckets of water. So we took baths in shallow water baths. I'd heat up on the camp stove. We did all our cooking outside on the camp stove, which was fine. I mean, we were able to go by. It was a great opportunity to test some of the preparedness things that we had done for almost 2 weeks. And yeah, it was a great experience. We learned a lot, and we made some adjustments. And hopefully, in your experience, you can kind of look ahead on those things and make those, and not have to go to an actual emergency. But this was a really good exercise for us. Another thing we learned that during this whole 13 days, we became closer with our neighbors that we hadn't even talked to ever. A couple elderly neighbors south of us. We checked on them every day, and neighbors across the road, neighbors that we normally, and I think really that's kind of the way Americans are. We look out for each other in bad times. So, and we've kept those relationships going even afterwards. So develop those relationships with your neighbors ahead of time. It'll make emergencies like this a little bit easier to handle. You don't have to tell everybody that you're a prepper. I'm a big believer of operational security. You don't tell anybody what you've got, how much, or anything like that, but there's no reason why you can't be a good neighbor. Okay, those are the lessons I've learned. We've made changes, and hopefully if it ever happens again, we'll be a little bit better off. And this is just one of the examples, or one of the ways that grid down might happen. And it happened to us, and we were able to deal with it and learn going forward. So this is Redneck Mormon signing off. Thanks, YouTube.